Hi, I am Tina Swithin from One Mom's Battle, and today I want to talk about the concept of parental alienation, which has been denounced by every credible organization around the world. And I also want to talk about the reality of reunification camps. So, if you are in the family court system or you have any interest in the family court system, it is my guess that the concept of parental alienation is already on your radar. I encourage you to educate yourself on the disturbing history of this movement, going back to Richard Gardner, and the present day movement, which is equally disturbing. And you can go to the nationalsafeparents.org to read about the full scope of this movement. It is the most comprehensive compilation of information that I have ever seen on this topic. So when a parent is accused of alienation, they're placed under a spotlight or a microscope in the family court system. One of the most devastating outcomes of this accusation is that children are removed from the safe parent or the preferred parent and sent to reunification camps. We want to see these camps exposed for what they are, and we want to call for an end to reunification camps. These are no different than what we've learned about through Paris Hilton and her advocacy work and in breaking code silence. And these truly fall under the same umbrella. And we've actually started communication with their organization. We would love to come under their umbrella. So I want to talk about the reality of the alienation industry. This is a very lucrative cottage industry in the family court system. And over the past 10 years, I have watched this industry explode, and not in a good way. We're going backwards. This is an industry that is directing the courts to further prioritize the rights of a parent over the rights of a child to be safe. In the family court system, reunification camps are very much the troubled child or the troubled teen industry. However, these are not troubled children or troubled teens. These are children who want to be heard and who deserve to be heard. These children become a threat when they try to use their voice to advocate for themselves. We need to stop infantilizing children and teenagers. We need to place their safety at the forefront of family court decision making, and we need to place their rights above parental rights. Children's rights are human rights. On October 20th of 2022, the UN Human Rights Council, UN Special Procedures experts, issued the following statement. Accusations of parental alienation by abusive fathers against mothers must be considered as a continuation of power and control by state agencies and actors, including those deciding on child custody. The UN Human Rights Council announced a new focus on alienation claims as an abuse tactic. They are calling for input for a report that will be presented in June of 2023. And to quote the request for submissions, given the correlation between the resort to the concept of parental alienation and the persistence of gender-based violence against women, the topic requires urgent attention. And we agree. It goes on to say the aim of this report is to examine the ways in which family courts in different world regions refer to parental alienation or similar concepts in custody cases and how this may lead to double victimization of victims of domestic violence. What we see in the family court system is that any attempt to hold an abuser accountable results in claims of alienation. It's predictable, it's playbook. This is a crisis in the family court systems worldwide. Accusations of alienation become the answer to everything, and that's what needs to stop. The easiest way for me to describe the alienation industry, it's almost like a flow chart that I've created in an effort to be able to describe this to media or to other people who may not have any experience. And like most things in the family court system, they tend to look at us sideways and not really grasp what is happening. So the beginning of this, I see it play out in one of two different ways more often than not. Number one is that the preferred parent or the safe parent makes a claim of abuse. And then the abusive parent issues a counterclaim of alienation, which is predictable. It is a Darvo tactic or technique and a legal strategy. And DARVO stands for Deny, Attack, Reverse, Victim, and Offender. And that is the most common direction we see this start out. Or number two, maybe there were no claims of abuse filed because so many of us are discouraged by our own attorneys or by other professionals, not to mention the abuse. As we know, domestic abuse is not just physical, and so the coercive control, the psychological, emotional abuse, and terrorism that we're subjected to, it can be very hard to prove. So we're often discouraged, don't use that word. And so maybe we start off in the family court system and we aren't making these claims, but the child rejects the unhealthy, high conflict, or abusive parent for obvious reasons. They didn't have a bond with this parent to begin with because this parent is incapable of bonding with the child, or the child witnessed the abuse. And there's a common mentality or thought process with family court professionals that, this person never abused the child. And I counter that. If the child witnessed abuse, the child is a victim of domestic abuse. Whether or not they were directly physically harmed, any type of abuse that they're witnessing takes a tremendous toll on children. And so for obvious reasons, the child has rejected this person. And so what we automatically see as the counter to that is claims of enmeshment or to enmeshed with the child, claims of gatekeeping, we are a helicopter parent, and to an unhealthy degree, or straight out of the gate, claims of alienation are made by the unhealthy parent. Next, if you have a family court system that believes the alienation propaganda that has been spread throughout the court system, you enter the next phase of the alienation industry, or the next layer. And this is children being court ordered into reunification therapy. And, the thought of a child or anyone being forced to sit in a room with their abuser, and that is trauma and triggering in itself. And so there's a reason why these situations are rarely successful. So then if we see the child continue to refuse contact with the abuser, and they have stamped reunification therapy as unsuccessful, we, as a healthy parent or the preferred parent, are often labeled as the problem. We are alienating, we are coaching, and that is a very difficult situation, because then if you are in a court system that does believe this propaganda, you have alienation experts that are lined up and waiting. Alienation experts and professionals, whether it be a parenting coordinator who, is aligned with this movement because there is a lot of money in this movement, or whatever other professional, minors counsel, whoever believes these alienation accusations, it adds additional and scary layers to this equation. So when these alienation experts stamp the case as severe alienation, and they accuse the preferred parent of coaching or alienating the child, there is, in the more extreme cases, the judge will order reunification camp. That is the answer that is provided by these experts and professionals, and the solution, which I have a lot to say about that, but I'll keep things focused on our topic at hand. Once this happens, the case begins on an entirely new pipeline, and one that is often a living nightmare for many. We start to see a team built, and this team is contracted transporters, also called transport agents, who are tasked with taking the child from their home, from the courthouse, wherever the orders are given. I've heard stories of children being taken off of school buses on their way home by these transport agents. And many times the transporters or this entire court order for reunification camp also involves a gag order. So the preferred parent or the healthy parent is silenced from speaking out or sharing what has taken place during this transporter process. And then there's a reunification camp set up. It's usually 4 days. The transporter will take the child directly to the reunification camp. And the way they avoid charges of human trafficking is that guardianship is transferred at each leg of this operation. So the transporters, when they show up to take the child, have legal guardianship and a court order to take the child, and then the guardianship is transferred to the reunification camp. So typically 4 days. At these camps, the children are met by individuals called deprogrammers, and there is a narrative that has been created that the children are often coerced or forced into going along with, and that is recanting the abuse. They are told that the abuse did not happen, that their preferred parent has made all of this up, and there's often threats involved depending on how vocal the child is and how much of a stance they are taking, or if they're refusing to go along with the process and they become a threat, the threats can increase. And then from there, we often have therapeutic and educational placement consultants on this team brought into the equation, and they are tasked with placing these children. And this is part of the 90-day blackout period where they have no contact with the preferred parent. This can involve a wilderness camp. These educational and therapeutic consultants will find them a wilderness camp, an institutional setting, a boarding school, or residential treatment facility, and sometimes group homes. And I have spoken to parents who have had no contact with their children for years, and that is absolutely terrifying that this can happen on the watch and under the orders of our family court system. And so many of these abusive parents have a common mentality: if I can't have them, no one will. And they know the number one way to hurt the healthy parent is by utilizing the children as pawns, as weapons. And so what is the solution in these situations? I will leave you with a quote from Danielle Pollock of the National Family Violence Law Center, who helped to author Caden's Law at the federal level. Danielle says, "In private custody litigation, children are being court-ordered despite their fear, resistance, and outcries to spend time with the parent they are afraid of. In many cases, they are ordered to costly, unregulated, unsafe reunification camps or treatments. Subcontracted transporters come to physically take the children to these camps, often directly from the courtroom where the decision is handed down. At these camps, children are often threatened that if they don't recant the abuse allegations, and or get along with the allegedly abusive parent, they could be sent to foster care and they may never see their protective parent again to whom they are bonded. And even more disturbing, that their protective parent may go to jail. Danielle goes on to say that this can be terrifying and traumatic for children, and it's an abomination that family courts are still ordering children into these unregulated treatments without any valid support for their safety or effectiveness. VAWA, Caden's Law, restricts courts from doing this, and I sincerely hope this dangerous practice ends and genuine oversight is created on behalf of vulnerable children. If you aren't following Danielle and Joan Meyer at the National Family Violence Law Center, again, they were instrumental in authoring Caden's Law. And I also invite you to join those of us who want to see Caden's Law passed across the country to join the National Safe Parents organization. It's nationalsafeparents.org. Help us to ensure that Caden's Law is implemented in every state across the country. This is the first time the federal government has recognized that we have a crisis in the family court system, and this highlights the need for these unregulated treatments and programs to be restricted. So please join us for our advocacy efforts in ensuring that children are the top priority in the family court system. That is long overdue. Thank you.